Look at your forearm, the soft side, where the skin is thinnest. Now imagine a single drop of milky white sap landing there on a hot afternoon. You wouldn't feel it, not at first. You'd wipe it off, maybe, the way you'd brush off pollen. You'd go about your day. By that evening, your skin would itch. By morning, blisters. By the weekend, raised welts in the exact shape of whatever leaf brushed against you, stenciled into your arm like a brand. That's phytophotodermatitis, plant, light, skin damage. And the plant most likely to do this to you, the one a 2013 case report in Contact Dermatitis singled out by name, is the common fig, Ficus carica, the same tree Adam and Eve grabbed leaves from, in the sun. And the more I dug into this, the more I started to think the man who wrote Genesis 3 was doing something a lot of preachers have been missing for 2,000 years. He wasn't picking a random plant. He was picking the worst possible one, on purpose. Genesis 3:7, 5 English words that do a lot of heavy lifting. They sewed fig leaves together. It's so familiar, most people stop reading before the sentence finishes. Sunday school flannel graph, a couple of cartoon leaves. Move on to the snake. But step back. This is the first independent action humanity takes after acquiring the knowledge of good and evil. The first decision made by people who are now, theologically speaking, fully in charge of themselves. And what do they choose? A plant whose sap eats protein. Let's slow down on the chemistry, because this is where the irony lives. Fig latex carries 2 compounds worth knowing. The first is ficin. It's a proteolytic enzyme, which is a fancy way of saying it digests protein. Meat tenderizer companies have used it for decades. Your skin is protein. The second compound is a class called furocoumarins, sorolins. These are photosensitizers, meaning they don't do much in the dark, but hit them with sunlight, ultraviolet specifically, and they bond to the DNA in your skin cells and trigger an inflammatory cascade that mimics a chemical burn. A 2014 review in the Journal of the American Academy of Dermatology, Bollig and Schmid, catalogs case after case. Kids climbing fig trees in July. A woman who made fig leaf tea for weight loss and rinsed her face with the leftovers. Second-degree burns, all of them. The pattern of the leaves visible on the skin for months. So the question becomes obvious. Was the author of Genesis a botanist? Probably not in the lab coat sense. But here's what I think he was. He was a man who had watched field hands come back from the orchard in late summer with their forearms blistered. He knew what figs do. Anyone who lived in the Levant in the 8th century BCE knew what figs do. The Babylonians knew, the Egyptians knew. The Greek physician Dioscorides, writing in the 1st century, mentions fig sap as a caustic substance to be handled carefully. Everybody knew, and the writer picked it anyway. Now I'm going to take you somewhere most retellings of this story never go. 8 miles north of Jericho, the Jordan Valley, a site called Gilgal I. In 2006, a team led by Mordechai Kislev, an Israeli archaeobotanist, published a finding in Science that should have made every theologian on the planet sit up. They had excavated a small Neolithic house at Gilgal I and recovered 9 carbonized figs, black, hardened, preserved by fire. The figs were parthenocarpic, which means they reproduce without pollination, which means they had to be propagated by humans. Cuttings, taken deliberately, planted on purpose. The figs were 11,400 years old. Wheat domestication, the founding crop of civilization in every textbook you ever read, comes about 1,000 years later. Barley, lentils, chickpeas, all of it after the fig. The fig is the first crop. Period. The first thing humans ever bothered to bind themselves to a piece of land for. The original sin of agriculture, if you want to read it that way. The decision to stop wandering, stop foraging, and start farming. And the first decision Adam and Eve make after acquiring moral knowledge is to reach for the leaves of that exact plant. You see what's happening? I want you to do something weird with me for 30 seconds. Close your eyes if you can. If you're driving, obviously don't. But picture this. You're standing barefoot on warm dirt somewhere east of the Mediterranean. The light has that specific quality you only get in that part of the world in August. Honeyed, Heavy? There's a fig tree in front of you. The leaves are the size of dinner plates, lobbed like an open hand, rough on top like cat tongue. There's a smell, green and milky and just slightly sweet, like overripe fruit and cut grass. You'd reach for those leaves. Anyone would. That's the part of this story that breaks my heart a little. They didn't pick the burning plant because they were stupid or rebellious. They picked it because it looked like the right answer. Big leaves, nearby, soft enough. Their first independent choice was a reasonable choice that happened to be catastrophically wrong. If you've ever made a decision that seemed obvious in the moment and ruined the next 6 months of your life, this story is about you. It's not really about a garden. Track the fig forward through the rest of the book, and a pattern starts emerging that's hard to unsee. The fig tree shows up more than 50 times in the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament. The prophet Micah, chapter 4, verse 4. Every man under his vine and his fig tree, none making him afraid. The fig is peace, the fig is prosperity. Hosea calls Israel itself the first fruits on the fig tree. Jeremiah, chapter 24, uses 2 baskets of figs to render judgment on a kingdom. One basket is good, one is rotten. Same fruit, different fates. And then, Mark 11. Jesus is walking from Bethany into Jerusalem. He's hungry. He sees a fig tree in full leaf, walks over expecting fruit, finds nothing but leaves, and curses it. The next morning, the tree is withered to the roots. Mark, who is the most economical writer in the New Testament, sandwiches this scene around the cleansing of the temple. The point isn't really about a tree, it's about a religious institution making a great show of leaves while producing no fruit. But notice what got chosen for that lesson. Not an olive, not a cedar, a fig. The same plant that clothed the first failure gets withered as a sign of the last one. The book closes the loop it opened. I spent close to 4 months chasing rabbinic sources to see if anyone in the tradition ever explicitly noticed the chemical burn problem. I went through Bereshit Rabbah. I went through what's available in English of Targum's Pseudo-Jonathan. I read a 2019 piece by Rabbi Natan Slifkin on the botany of Eden. None of them say, in plain words, fig sap burns. Of course they don't. They didn't have a dermatology journal. What they did have, and this is where it gets interesting, is a tradition recorded in Bereshit Rabbah 15:7 that the forbidden fruit itself was a fig, not an apple. The apple thing is a Latin pun from Jerome's Vulgate, malum meaning evil and malum meaning apple. A medieval joke that calcified into doctrine. The older Jewish tradition is that the tree they ate from is the same tree they tried to hide under. You eat the fruit. You realize you're naked. You grab the leaves of the same tree. The leaves burn you. The story is one continuous loop of cause and consequence written into the chemistry of a single plant. I have to be honest with you about where I landed on this. For about 3 months, I was sure the irony was deliberate, authorial wink. Then I read Theodore Hebert at McCormick Theological Seminary, his 2008 piece in the Journal of Biblical Literature, arguing the fig leaf detail is really about agricultural identity. Fig leaves are what farmers wear. The leaves mark the transition from the wild garden to the cultivated sweat-of-your-brow world they're about to be exiled into. I think Hebert is mostly right. I also think he's not the whole picture. Both readings can be true at once. The text is layered enough to carry both. The agricultural reading explains why the fig. The chemical reading explains why the fig leaves, specifically against bare skin, in the sun. Whoever composed Genesis 3 picked the one plant in the orchard whose fruit may have been the forbidden one, whose cultivation marks the start of agriculture itself, whose leaves burn you in sunlight, whose latex digests protein, and whose tree will, centuries later, get cursed by the descendant of the man who first reached for it. That's not coincidence. That's craft. The Italian landscaper in that 2013 Contact Dermatitis report, the one who got blistered pruning a fig tree in July. The case study ends with a clinical note that I keep coming back to. The patient, it says, was unaware of the plant's photosensitizing properties at the time of exposure. He didn't know the leaves would burn him. 11,400 years after we first started farming the things, and we still don't.